It's the WHO Radio Wise Guys Face-Off #1, January 22nd, 2011, the week that Steve Jobs announced he was taking a medical leave of absence as CEO of Apple. That brings up the question, what is Apple without Steve Jobs, and what happens to them now? Dan Adams.
I say it's the same thing. I say Apple is the same company. It's no big deal. Steve Jobs is his taking a second medical leave of absence from Apple is really not a huge thing, because the last time, about a year ago, he took a medical leave. That's when Apple came out with the iPad, and look at the success of the iPad. I don't see this as a big deal, Brian.
I think in the short term it might not be a big deal, but I think in the long term, if he keeps on staying away, Apple could be in trouble, because I think Steve Jobs puts the cult in Apple's culture. Keep in mind, in Apple especially, it is a back and forth between the people inside the company and the consumers who rely on the company. And I think that back and forth exchange relies on Steve Jobs as that sort of intermediary. I think he forms the centerpiece to that company, much in the same way that a political candidate, for instance, forms the presence and the identity of a political party. I think he's very similar to that.
I disagree completely. I think Apple's culture is based on Steve's vision and not on Steve himself. The whole Apple culture has always been based around their operating systems, not the people that put them together. Again, I don't see this as a huge deal.
And I think there's a really long list of companies that simply have not survived without the founder, or have gotten themselves into a lot of deep trouble without the founder around. And I think without a guy like Steve Jobs around, Apple is likely to flounder. I mean, I think it's very much like Virgin Airways without Richard Branson. I think some of these people are so imperative to forming the culture of their company that when they're gone, so does the culture. The culture goes away too, and then thus does the company.
Okay, but what you've just described is two people that are egomaniacs, and how they created their culture. Steve Jobs is not anywhere near that level of an egomaniac. Again, the culture of Apple is centered around their operating systems and their software, not the man himself. So
I think the culture of Apple is centered a lot around the Apple feeling, and I think that feeling is driven very, very strongly by Steve Jobs and what his vision is.
I don't agree with that at all. I think it's the quality products that they put out, not the person at the head of the company. So,
well, for more spirited debate, I guess you'll have to tune in next Saturday at 1 o'clock on